You have asked a question that has echoed through centuries of study, quiet contemplation, and the turning of ancient pages. How does the book of Ecclesiastes square with the mansion of the dead described in Enoch chapter 22? On the surface, they seem to pull in opposite directions. One speaks of finality beneath the sun. The other speaks of conscious waiting beyond it. One tells us that love, hatred, and envy perish, and that the dead have no portion in anything done under the sun. The other reveals a geography of separation, where the departed are held, aware, and divided. But when we lay these texts side by side and let the deeper architecture of the Scriptures speak, we do not find a contradiction. We find a design, a deliberate, multi-layered structure that reveals how YHWH relates to death, to time, and to the portion of the soul. First, hear the voice of Ecclesiastes. It is the voice of the earthly economy. It maps the limits of this world with unflinching clarity. It tells us plainly that beneath the sun, there is no lasting portion. The labor of your days ends. What you built, what you loved, what you achieved, it stays in its light. This is not pessimism. It is a boundary marker. Ecclesiastes is tracing the horizon of human endeavor. It is telling us that if your identity, your inheritance, and your hope are tied only to what you can see, touch, and accumulate beneath the sun, then death is indeed the final curtain. The sun rises, the sun sets, and what was done in its light stays in its light. The voice of Ecclesiastes is the voice of reality, stripped of illusion. It says, "Do not place your portion in what the sun can give, because the sun cannot give what lasts." Now, shift your gaze to the second voice, the voice of Enoch. Here, the geography changes. We are no longer looking at the sunlit surface. We are looking into the deeps, a place of separation, a holding place. The dead are conscious. They are aware. Some are comforted. Some are in pain. This is the mansion of the dead. It is not a place of final punishment, nor is it the ultimate destination. It is an intermediate domain. It is the waiting room, and it operates on a completely different set of rules than the world beneath the sun. In this domain, the sun does not shine. The economy of earthly accumulation does not apply. What matters here is covenant, memory, and the state of the soul at the moment it crossed the threshold. So how do these two realities square? They do not cancel each other out. They describe two adjacent rooms in the same house. Ecclesiastes maps the surface. Enoch maps the threshold. But neither book, on its own, reveals the door that connects them. That door is opened by a third reality, one that runs like a golden thread through the entire corpus, the priesthood of YHWH. Listen closely. The priesthood does not operate under the sun. It belongs to the sacred domain. When the Scriptures speak of covenant inheritance, of tithes set apart as sacred, of wave offerings brought as first fruits, of a tabernacle that settles in the possession of YHWH rather than the possession of man, they are pointing to a system that transcends the earthly cycle. The priesthood is the mechanism by which portion is assigned, not by the sun, not by human effort, but by covenant. It is the bridge between what perishes and what is held. It is the architecture that carries identity, inheritance, and consecration across the boundary of death. When Ecclesiastes says the dead have no portion under the sun, it is absolutely correct. But the priesthood answers, your portion was never meant to be found under the sun. Your portion is YHWH himself. And how does this bridge activate? Through appointed times. Look at the doorway verse that anchors this entire inquiry. A king stands at the edge of death. He asks for a sign. The answer is not a philosophical debate about the afterlife. The answer is a specific day, the third day, healing, a return to the temple, death on the first day, silence on the second, vindication on the third. This pattern repeats throughout the Scriptures. It is not random. It is a rhythm of redemption. The appointed times of YHWH are the keys that turn in the lock between the sunlit world and the waiting mansion. The third day is the pattern of resurrection. It is the moment when the priesthood reaches across the threshold and pulls the living back into sacred space. It is the appointed season when the economy of vanity is overturned and the economy of covenant takes hold. This is why the tension between Ecclesiastes and Enoch is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be inhabited. The convergence of themes, the weight of the textual signal, the deliberate alignment of identity, inheritance, and priesthood, all of it points to a single, intentional design. Both books are true. Both domains are real. The sunlit economy ends. The intermediate mansion waits. But the priesthood of YHWH oversees both, not by denying death, but by acting through it. The mathematics of the text, the statistical anomaly of the convergence, the direct textual hits that span from the wisdom of Solomon to the apocalyptic visions of Enoch, they all whisper the same truth. Do not force these texts into a false resolution. Hold the tension. The tension is the architecture. So when you read Ecclesiastes and feel the weight of vanity, do not despair. You're seeing the boundary of the earthly house. When you read Enoch and sense the reality of the waiting dead, do not fear. You are seeing the threshold of the sacred house. And when you hear the call to the third day, to the temple, to the covenant inheritance, understand that you are standing in the architecture of redemption. The sun will set. The mansion will wait. But the priesthood will act. The appointed time will arrive. And your portion, which the sun cannot give and death cannot erase, will be secured in the sacred domain. Trust the priesthood. Trust the appointed times. Trust that the tension you are reading is not a flaw in the text, but a feature of the design. It is YHWH telling you, do not collapse this mystery. Walk through it and find your portion where it was always meant to be. This is not about choosing between wisdom and revelation. It is about recognizing that YHWH speaks in layers. The surface tells you the truth of this age. The deep tells you the truth of the threshold. The sacred tells you the truth of eternity. When you align your life with the priesthood, you step out of the sunlit economy of vanity and into the covenant economy of inheritance. You stop asking what you will lose when the sun sets, and you start trusting who will be waiting when the appointed time arrives. The mansion of the dead is real. The words of Ecclesiastes are true, but they are not the final word. They are the doorway, and the third day is always coming. Stand in the tension. Read the text. Trust the sign. And let the architecture of the sacred hold you, from the rising of the sun to the depths of the waiting place and beyond.